intentional about your core values, you cultivate the kinds of beliefs and behaviors that you want. In this video, I'm going to share 5 activation strategies to put your values into action at work with your team. The first strategy is scheduling. When you think about your core values, how are you spending your time? Time is a limited resource, and it's important to have time for your core values actually represented and accounted for on your calendar regularly. So, as an example, one of our core values is learning and curiosity. So, we spend time in every one-to-one discussing what we're learning, what we want to learn, and we use our blues and oranges feedback model to help with this. It's a coaching approach to having feedback conversations. So I share my own oranges, what I want to learn, and my team members share theirs as well. That's an example of how you can schedule something or make a habit of something in your calendar. The second strategy for activating values is stories. How do you pass along stories and what stories are told? If you think about the stories that people tell on your team, there's generally a sort of moral to the story, even if it's not explicitly said. These stories help people to think about what's really important around here. I'll give you an example. In one company that I used to work for, it was a restaurant company, and we had a value called having an MBA, but MBA stood for mop bucket attitude. So one day I went to a new restaurant that was just opening that day. I got there early to help open the restaurant. And when I got there, the president and the CEO were already there hard at work. The president was cleaning bathrooms and the CEO was sweeping the floors. Turns out the night cleaners hadn't shown up, so the president and CEO had put on their mop bucket attitude to get the restaurant ready to open. Now, that story became sort of folklore across the company. People would tell it all the time to show what this mop bucket attitude looked like and how everyone had that MBA. So, are there stories that reflect one of your values that people might tell over time? The next strategy is critical decisions. When we have to make a difficult call, maybe we're saying no to something that's hard to let go of or makes us uncomfortable, or we're making a decision that might make our work a little more challenging. Or maybe it's about where we're spending money. Our budget often clarifies what's important. So, what are the decisions that you're making that help to represent your values? An example of this is from the company Zappos. They're an online shoe retailer, and one of the things they did years ago was that they cut out their distribution and delivery partner. They decided to start doing all of their distribution in-house, and they lost 25% of their sales overnight by doing this. But their partner didn't have the same value of customer service that they did. So they decided that was too important and they cut out that partner and 25% of their sales. Now, this ended up being a profitable decision in the long run for them. They actually later sold the company for more than $1.2 billion, but that was a critical decision at the time, and it really represented their value of customer service. So think about when you're making a tough decision, how can you make sure that you're making that based on values? The fourth strategy is rewards and recognition. What are you rewarding people for? Sometimes it turns out what we're recognizing might be perpetuating the wrong behavior. One example that I find comes up often is rewarding people for time spent when that's usually not a value. So if you have a value of high performance, but you're recognizing people for spending all weekend working on something or staying late or spending extra time, that sort of recognition might be recognizing spending more time getting things done rather than being more productive and getting more done. So think about what you're recognizing. In that example, we would want to recognize the performance and the result rather than the time spent doing it. What are you recognizing, and is it rewarding the right kinds of behaviors? Finally, the last strategy that I'll share is language. Maybe you use certain metaphors often, or quotes, or maybe there's questions that you ask all the time. On our team, we often ask, "What did you learn today?" Or, "What can we learn from that when we have a challenge?" One of our other language adjustments is that we don't say happy Friday. We might say happy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but we actually don't say happy Friday. And this is because we strongly believe that all days should be awesome, not just the weekend. We want to make work awesome. So we don't want to perpetuate the myth that fun and happiness only happens on the weekend, that TGIF sort of mentality. So we say TGIM. And so this language helps us to cultivate a world where we can actually have fun while at work. So think about the language cues that might help you to demonstrate and encourage your values. The more intentional you can be with some values-based habits, the more you'll create the culture that you're striving for.